Well, I was in college. My college girlfriend got pregnant. I needed a job, and I had a choice to make: sell cable TV door to door or sell replacement windows. So I opted for sell cable TV to door, and that resulted in a couple of decade career with Comcast. And then at a certain point, I really enjoy the smaller entrepreneurial stuff. I started my own company, and we started by representing Comcast and Charter, and getting agreements for them with apartment owners. And then over time, they took that responsibility away from third-party partners and took it in-house. So we started our representing, people who own multifamily properties.
That's awesome. It seems like a lot of
happened, man. It just kind of happened.
yeah. Yeah, it's funny the beginning stages of people that get into real estate. We've had teachers, we've had people that are just so far off of real estate, never in their wildest dreams would they thought they end up in real estate, and they do. But the one common thing I'm seeing, a lot of sales. A lot of people come from that sales route. You going with Comcast, I know that it's not your business, but I read this term entrepreneur, and it's always resonated with me a little bit. Sales positions, you're always entrepreneurs. You don't have a book of business to take over usually that you can just run with and then you make a bunch of money. You going door to door, you have to create your own leads, and who do you follow up with and who have I connected with? So you're trying to build that book of business, which almost is like the first taste of starting a small business. And then
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had to build this from scratch because we were representing, Comcast and Charter, but we couldn't just contact the people we'd been working with because of, non-compete and things like that. So we really had to kind of shift entirely, start from scratch, make different types of connections, and grow the business that way. So I've done a lot of podcasts like yours, go to a few conferences a year where people who are just new to multifamily are getting started, and don't know about a service like ours. A lot of LinkedIn, and honestly, and I feel great about this because most of our business comes from referrals, which means we're treating our clients the right way.
Yep. If you're getting good referrals, you're doing great things for your clients. That's like a telltale sign of a good business practice or not.
And I felt bad. A lot of people were like struggling during COVID. I got to tell you, man, our business grew. I think the numbers were 254% during that time, because
that's
people
awesome.
are looking like, what other revenue streams can I have? If I'm going to struggle with people maybe not being able to pay for their rent, and me not maybe being able to evict them and put somebody in there, what else is there? And so ours was one of those solutions where we had planted the seed over time, and referrals kind of took off at that point as well, because they were like, well, guess what? I got a guy who can generate some revenue for you, or maybe look at your, utility expenses and save you money. And, people really were motivated at that point in time to try and find a way to kind of guard their cash flow as much as they could, given the challenge of rent collection.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's always trying to find those little areas in multifamily to increase your revenue. Your rent is going to stay pretty much consistent. You obviously get your bumps annually, or whatever your rate or your period is where you increase your rents. But there's always those little things that you can go in and fix and tweak in your multifamily building to make the building generate more income. Things like what you're talking about, the utilities, the cable, the other contracts that you assume when you buy the building, like garbage disposal, like getting new quotes for those to lower your prices. There's laundry. A lot of different laundry facilities. There's a lot of different ancillary things within multifamily where you can generate money. Even if it's a couple $100, it's still a couple $100 that you didn't have before. So
you know what, Marcus? Let me tell you a quick Comcast story, because I was traveling during some budget meetings with, this was when Comcast was small, with the president of the company, the CFO, my boss at the time, who was the VP of marketing, and we were checking into a hotel, and the president of the company says, "Do you offer a corporate discount?" Right, and this is a guy who's making millions, right? And the company is if you follow stocks, doing pretty well, right? So not
Yeah.
struggling. And the CFO turns to me, and he was always kind of a really cool mentor of mine. And he said, "See, that's what it's about. It's about making $1 million is nothing more than $1,000,001 bills. So you take care of all those little things." And this was years ago, so maybe the saying now should be making $10 million is well, $10,000,001 bills. But it stuck with me. It was a good
Hmm.
lesson. You know, you got to take care of each of those things, because they're all opportunities, and cumulatively, they add up.
They do. They do. Could you go into more in depth of what you offer for these multifamily um, buildings or property owners?
Yeah, sure, love to. So for the most part, 90% of what we do is cable and internet contracts, right? There's a lot of different variations of them, and FCC had a ruling back in February that's now in effect, and so a lot of things changed. So I go into that. I mean, there's some savings to be had on the electric and gas, but it really depends on what market you're in, because there's only, I think it's 14 states now that are deregulated where you can get a competitive offer. The other states are regulated, which basically means the state dictates what the rates are. And so you don't have an opportunity for savings from a rate standpoint. Obviously, anything you can do to reduce the bill with smart thermostats and things like that are always an option, but not through the rate. So we
Yeah.
negotiate for the property owner. Usually our minimum is 20 units or more, because
Okay.
below that, there's just not that many options. But I would still encourage people to, look at what they're paying and why they're paying, and if they need internet, or if they're providing service as part of their rent, things like that. And that's what we do. Is so we look at the agreements that are in place for the property owner, and oftentimes the agreement is expired, or it's in an auto renew period, and we can do a new agreement or a renewal. And in exchange for signing the new longer term agreement, we can get compensation for the owner, right? So the owner, because the owner owns that property, so the residents may be the customers of the cable or the internet company, but without the owner's permission, those companies can't be on that owner's property to provide service without their permission, right? So
Yep.
Milwaukee, right? Spectrum is the predominant player there, and they've got a franchise to operate in the city of Milwaukee that gives them the right to the public easements. Marcus, if you own a home there and you want Spectrum, you're signing and you're saying, "Yeah, come on my personal property," right?
Yep.
You own a multifamily property there, let's say 20 units, and I'm one of your residents, I can't go to Spectrum and say, "Yeah, come on Marcus's personal property and provide service," unless there's an agreement in place between you and Spectrum.
Yep.
So it's like an extra step. You're like a gatekeeper. And let's face it, there's value in that, right?
Yeah.
Depending on what terms you're willing to get. Are you willing to help them market? Are you willing to, provide them any exclusive rights? Although some of those are no longer available. You can't say, "On my property, it's only going to be Spectrum. Nobody else can," because you can't give them the exclusive right to serve, but you can give them other exclusive rights, and those have value. So that's kind of how it plays out. And we represent you because, I tell people all the time, right? Well, why do I need you to do that? Can't I do that? Sure, you can, but I can also change my own oil in my car if I really wanted to. But is that the
Yep.
best use of my time? And am I really going to do it the best way, or am I going to create other problems that I'm not even aware of, because
Yep.
that's not my area of expertise?
Right.
Yep. I love the pushback of like, well, why can't I just do that? And I've been in sales before. It's a
Yeah.
pushback you get in sales all the time. And I've always answered that exact same way. Sure, you can. Here are the steps to do it if you want to do it. And it's usually like, oh, I don't want to do that. Well, that's why you called me. So
Well, yeah,
here
the
we
other
are.
thing is our compensation structure is we are commission only. We are your business partner. You don't pay us a retainer. You don't pay us an hourly rate. If we get you compensation, we get a percentage of that. And our percentage is the same whether we get you $1 or whether we get you $10,000, right? So we have a
That's a
vested
big
interest.
risk for you guys.
Well, we put a lot of work in, but we're in it
Yeah,
for long-term relationships. And we want there to be no objection to working with us, right?
yeah,
So my goal is to get you as much money because that's going to make me get as much money as possible. And
yeah,
it's a true win-win.
yeah. And that's great. And are you able to still work within those states or the municipalities that have that the set cap or the set limit for utility um,
Well,
and
that is for
cable?
electric and gas. And so we
Okay.
can't do anything for electric and gas. We can do cable and internet virtually everywhere, or at least we will attempt to do it everywhere, because it depends on who the providers are. It depends on how competitive the marketplace is. I mean, you get in some very rural areas where there's only one provider. I've had them say, what else are you going to do? We're not going to give you any
Yeah.
compensation. um but
Because
then
we're
you
the only
get
ones you can get anyways.
Right, but then you get into a market like a Dallas or something where AT&T is putting 5G fiber out there and Spectrum's out there with their service as well, and it's more competitive. Then it makes sense.
Yeah. And those are the little nuances that, yeah, you could do yourself if you want to read and have how many years of experience that you've had within this industry. Like
You got to
those are the
make it.
things you're paying for. It's something that I couldn't make enough phone calls in a week to gain the knowledge that you've done and dealt with as you've gone through this industry.
Well, the other thing is that one of the hardest things is to find the right person to talk to. I
Yes.
mean, you can't just
If
call
you've
the
ever called
general
Spectrum's
spectrum.
customer service, it's
It's like,
impossible.
you're how many transfers, we know who to go to. Milwaukee, great, I know who to talk to.
Yeah. And that's a
Dallas, great,
big
I know who to talk to.
yes. And like you are coming in saying, we've got a bunch of people that want to buy your service. How can you help us out? So you're going kind of on the offense on that way, correct?
Yes, because we maintain a database of all the properties of all our clients, and we look for ones that are coming up for renewal. And if we're going into a market where we don't have, say, somebody doesn't have a large portfolio, we may be able to leverage other people's properties if they're coming up for renewal, or things, or if they've got new properties. And we can go to them and say, look, I've got 3 owners. Collectively, they've got 300 units, but one of them's only got 40, another's got 60, and another's got 200. What can we do for the group as a whole? And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but at least we have the ability to try and create that leverage.
Yeah. And that in that specific scenario, you can't just call the generic Spectrum customer service line and have the person who picks up the phone do that for you. They don't have the autonomy to make that decision.
Correct.
So the people higher up, the management levels are the ones you have to talk to, which it sounds like you know who to contact to get that conversation started.
Exactly. And we get proposals, we review the proposals, and then we leave it up to the owner. If they want a recommendation, we'll give it to them. But our job is to kind of present them with different options. Because one of the things that's become kind of more of I guess I don't know what the right word is, but more common, is that people are now offering internet service as an amenity. So if you have a multifamily property, you can buy in bulk at a discount from a provider, and you can include it in the rent and say, hey, I know the property next door, the rent is $600. Mine's $640, but mine includes internet service.
Yep.
And that's something that some people want to do. Again, it depends on the market. It depends on how competitive trying to get, residents in is. It depends on the class of the property. Oftentimes we see the higher, at more towards A, that's more common, more towards the lower, where, they're really just price sensitive and just worried about paying their rent. The owner doesn't want to take on that burden, because it does become then a contract and a liability. So, and we walk through all those different scenarios with the owners so that they know what is available to them. And then they can make the business decision on what's best for them.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it seems like a no-brainer, but I've never thought of this philosophy as like having buying power with all the units you have. I don't know why, but that street never turned for me. I always felt like we were kind of at the liberty of whatever they wanted to set the price at, and we just had to take it. So this
In some
is this a
cases,
smaller industry that, like, how many other competitors are nationwide like this? Because I've never heard of it. It's cool.
I mean, I know that there are other companies that do this. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. We worry about our company, and we feel like if we're doing right by our clients, that we'll, continue to grow. So, I mean, there are definitely a few other people and some individuals that do this as well. Some companies bigger than us, and obviously a few that are smaller. But I kind of just take care of my side of the street and take care of my clients and keep putting the word out about my business and what we can do. And, let's face it, how many apartments are there in the country, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there could be, 5 times as many companies as there are now doing this, and there'd still be plenty of opportunity for everybody.
Yep.
Because what we find is a lot of people just don't know about this as an opportunity. We
Yeah.
talk to a lot of people that are coming into the business, new to the business. I mean, we got a great story about a conference I go to every year where it's about educating people that want to get into multifamily, but it's also a little bit about, once you're in there, what can you do? And, first year there, this guy comes up to me and he wants to know about what we do. And he has like 12 units, right? He's got like a couple of duplexes, and I think his biggest building had like 6 units in it or something like that. I said, we can't really do anything for you right now. I see him at the same conference the next year, and he's like, I'm about to close on a 65 unit property. Can you help me? And I'm like, absolutely. And
Yeah.
then I've seen him every year since then, except this last year, because he's too busy running his business now. He's got over 1,000 units.
Wow.
Yeah.
5
It
years.
goes quick.
5 years.
And that's like the scaling that we were talking about in the beginning, where you start in that residential space, but the scale you can get to when you go to multifamily is crazy.
I was at a conference this last weekend, and I talked to a bunch of people that weren't in multifamily yet, but they were at the multifamily conference to learn how to do it. And several of them said, I've got to get rid of my single families and get into multifamily.
Yep.
Because let's face it, you got a single family and you've got one vacancy, it's 100%. You got a 20-unit building,
Yeah.
and you got one vacancy, and you still got 19 units producing revenue for you.
Yep. And that's the big liability of single family. And you weigh that with historically single family tenants stay longer because it is more of a house feel. So you play that teeter-totter where
Yeah.
do you want someone to stay longer, or do you want to turn over units? And there's no right or wrong, but eventually, if you're trying to go scale for income purposes, multifamily is going to win out
Yeah,
more often than not.
and I'm not saying a single family is wrong. I'm just saying that
Right.
that's, one of the things I hear often from my clients who are in multifamily and why they're in multifamily.
Marcus, are you
Yes. Yep.
the fate and see what I do next now too? Is that where we're going with this conversation?
What was it? It cut out. Sorry, Natasha.
Are we tempting the fate to see what I'm going to do next and like trying to get me to buy multifamily now? Is that where we're going?
You're going to eventually. It's only a matter of time.
What? You don't have multifamily already?
I have my single family house, and then we bought another single family house. But we were just talking, my husband and I were just talking this year, and we're like, and I told him, I'm like, the next one we have to do is at least a duplex. I'm like, I have to have like 2 streams of income coming in. I'm like, this is silly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they talk about what it takes to manage a duplex in a single family is pretty close. So if you're going to go do a multifamily, you'll get more rent roll on it.
Sure.
And you're still in that residential space.
Love it.
Well, the other thing that I hear a lot about is like, I get a lot of people who are maybe buying a C-class property, right? And they want to go in and, it's got a lot of deferred maintenance and things like that. So they want to go in and they want to move it to a B-class property and then refinance, take the proceeds and then buy their next one, right? And in order to do that, let's say it's a 20-unit property, they can have 1 unit or 2 units unoccupied at any given time while they're renovating those units. And
Yep.
maybe it takes them the course of the year to go out and renovate and entirely and move a C-class property to a B-class property in a year, refinance a year later based on the new property value, take that incremental and either pay back investors that might have been part of it, or take that and then invest in another property and do that and just get the snowball going.
Yeah. Yep. And it does take time, and it takes like the conferences you're going to and getting the knowledge, which are all great. And I did want to touch a little bit on those conferences. I know that you talked about you meet a lot of people at those conventions, which is a great way of like organically creating leads. The best way to get in touch with people is face to face still, even though we have all this technology. But and I know the struggle on the purchase side, on the real estate side. This is not like a home that you can go knock on their door and be like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, are you going to sell your house? The owners of these buildings usually do not live in the buildings. So do you have a way, or how have you navigated that, finding those owners who aren't occupying the buildings? Because that is a big obstacle on the real estate investor side of getting in touch with these people. And you don't have to give us your secret sauce. Don't spill the beans.
Well, and the other thing is I've not done this personally, so I can only share with you the success stories I've heard, right? And for the most part, on the smaller properties, a lot of them are self-managed, and you'd be surprised at how many of them. So if you're just getting started and you want that smaller, the 12 to 50 range, a lot of those you can just mail or call whatever number is there. And even if they have like a local maintenance man who lives on property or whatever, they'll be like, oh, I can't do anything about that. You'd have to talk to, Joe, here's his number. He owns the property. And you'd be surprised. And there's still like a lot of, they call them the moms and pops, right? Where they've owned it forever and they just, have gotten, complacent a little bit in the property. And those are the ones that maybe it's retirement time and they just don't want to deal with it anymore. And so I know a lot of people that have actually done that. And I guess it's public record who the owner is, from what I understand, right? So
and the technology has helped with trick tracing, or trip tracing. Sorry. So there's an app that I actually use and I found from another podcast. I don't know if you've listened to Bigger Pockets, but there was they'd been sponsored and had the owner of Deal Machine on. And it basically, you can take a picture of a home and it trip traces not the address of the house, but the tax record of who owns it and where that address is linked.
Right.
So I can send mailers out to like the actual owners, even if they live in Ohio and the building's in Milwaukee.
Right.
Which is a crazy cool tech feature that has been developed, which makes it way easier. But it is amazing. Like you mentioned, the smaller buildings that are mom and pop ran.
Yeah.
How easy it is to just give people a call and be like, hey, are you going to sell anytime soon? My aunt, she had a duplex across the street from her. And she was like, oh, it'd be so good if she had 2 daughters, if they could move in there. And she called me and she's like, hey, do you think I can message these people? And I was like, yeah, why not? So she sent them a Facebook message. Hey, I live across the street from your duplex. If you ever think about selling, like, give me a call, basically. And she said, actually, we're getting it ready for sale right now. So she actually bought the building through a Facebook message.
Well, and I can tell you also from what I've heard, and I'm not an expert on this, so this is not expert advice, but if somebody has that, they may be more willing to give you like owner financing.
Yep.
Or, so it may be a situation that you're not going through commercial lending or something like that, that helps you get into multifamily. Because I know a lot of people's fears, like, oh my God, where do I get all the money? And, it's going to be more money. And that's another way. You start small, you get in, and especially if it's owner financing, maybe it's, for a period of time, maybe they're going to, and then you can get in there and you can do the renovations and increase the class And by the time you are able to refinance it, you've turned a C into a B, and you can refinance, and the bank's going to be like, yeah, okay, we can do this now. So it opens up some other doors as well.
Yes. The seller financing in the commercial space is a huge win for the newer investor that's trying to break through.
Yeah.
And we just had a guest on last week, and I believe he's in Utah. Was that correct? But where he was located, they were big on seller financing. He
Mhm.
said majority of their multifamily was done with seller financing. Here in Milwaukee, if I bring up seller financing, people are like, I don't believe it. That's not the thing. It's just not it's not a pattern that we've created here in the Milwaukee
Right.
Waukesha market.
Okay.
So the obstacles to get those sellers on board and not think that we're scamming them out of their building, or they're going to lose it all because of this weird loophole. It's a weird, not weird. It's a different philosophy that some people don't trust, which
Yeah. And
it does
yeah,
create some barriers, but the more and more it's done, the more and more it becomes second nature, like it had in other areas.
right. Very true. Yeah. And in some cases, and I'm not a tax expert or anything, but in some cases it's better for the owner too, I
Yeah.
think, from a tax perspective.
Yep. And in that, there's a number of different exit strategies, and a lot of things in the multifamily space. When these owners are thinking about retirement, that's not I wake up one day and I'm going to sell it. If you're in that space, you are more conscious of your financial wealth than just giving up your assets. We've
Right.
got 1031 exchanges that take years to put in place. There's other exit strategies that need the care and the attention so that you can exit, minimize your liability on it and your liability into retirement. That gives these new buyers, these younger buyers into the multifamily, a little bit more time to get into the purchasing world of multifamily, in my perspective.
Right.
But
Yeah, no, you're right. And the other thing, we talked about sending letters to, the true owners and things like that. Even if they're not ready now, maybe you planted a seed, and
yep,
maybe that starts them thinking about, well, I am kind of tired of running this place and fixing toilets and all that kind of stuff. And what do we do with that letter? Where, did we keep it? And I've heard stories about that people have sent out letters, and it'll be a year later and somebody will be like, you sent me this letter, you still looking? And they'll be like, yeah, let's talk.
yeah. No, the letters are surprisingly useful. My first real estate deal was off of a letter.
Okay.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Which I was shocked. Like I listened to it and they're like, all right, deal machine. And I was like, I'll give it a try. And I think I sent out 30 mailers or 20 mailers, and I got 4 people to contact me, which was a pretty high ratio. So
Right.
I was pretty happy with it to start. And
That's a
then
real
it just
high
kind of
ratio.
trickled and it went through it, which is great.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I get the same thing from clients. I talk to them at these conferences and things like that, where they're just learning, and they'll take my card, they'll take my information, and I don't know if they're going to call or not, but a year later, or even 2 years later, sometimes they'll call and say, hey, I don't know if you remember me, I met you uh, years ago, and I got into the multifamily space, are you still? I'm like, yeah, let's, I've it happens more often than you would expect.
that's awesome. And with your contracts, I did have this question. I didn't fit it in before. Your contracts that you're setting up with utilities, and let's just go Spectrum and all those other services that go into these buildings, do they stay with the property or do they stay with the owner? Like, let's say you set up a 10-year contract with the utility company, and in 3 years that owner sells. Is that new owner able to absorb that contract that you've set up with the rates, or is that reassessed, or how does that all
It's
break down?
it stays with the property. It's specifically
Awesome.
listed that it's but it is the responsibility of the seller to notify Spectrum or AT&T or Comcast or whoever it is that, hey, we sold this, because in some cases they're getting ongoing revenue, right? So
Yeah.
depending on what type of structure we have, and they want to make sure that that gets transferred over to the new owner. And so
Right.
we help with that. Any one of our clients, if they sell a building, they just have to say, Kevin, I sold ABC Apartments in, Rockford, Illinois. Here's the new owner. And we take care of it for them. Ironically, though, our compensation ends at that point because our relationship was with our current client. We don't have a deal with the new client. Our contract doesn't transfer over because we don't want to be an impediment in the, give anybody like, oh, I don't know if I want to sign a contract with you or do a deal with you because what if I sell this property and all that sort of stuff. We're like, that's fine. We're in it for a long-term relationship. If we get 3 years of revenue out of it, you sell it. But it gives me an introduction to a new owner who may have other properties. We've actually gotten a fair number of new clients because I'm like, well, I'm helping you with the transfer, no cost or anything to you. And I explain to them what we do, and they're like, oh, we have other properties. Can you look into those for us? And then we make the money off those and create a relationship.
Yeah. So it's like a goodwill service that opens up the other doors to more revenue, which is great.
When I left corporate America, I had some goals. I wanted to create a company where I could work with people that I liked, trusted, and respected. And we've fired clients before. If they don't, if we get to the point where we don't feel like we can trust them, or, they're some of their business practices, we don't do business. There's so much business out there that it's not worth, going to sleep at night and worrying about, this or that, or, and if somebody, I've had clients who have been really slow in paying or not pay, and and they come to us with a new property and we're like, sorry, we're not, it's just not worth it. There's too many other good people that are in this business, and we prefer to do business with them.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that see the benefit. I just took over this apartment complex. You come to me and say, hey, my contract doesn't come over with you, so you don't have to pay me, but I'm going to transfer this over. You'll still get all of the benefit. There's a lot of people out there that would say, okay, I wasn't even here and Kevin went to bat for me. He already got me my deal, which is great. I'm more willing to work with you because you've already saved me money and I haven't even talked to you.
Well, and what they really like is they just bought this property, right? So they've got a long checklist of stuff that they have to do. And to be able to check one off and not have to worry about it is easy, because we do it, everything as turnkey as possible. We use DocuSign, we just get a little bit of information, we keep things as basic and straightforward and automated as possible. We have reminders set. We'll send them, say, Marcus, ABC Apartments in Rockford's coming up for renewal. Are you okay if we start looking at proposals, and things like that? So they don't have to worry about keeping up on that because we do.
Yeah, that's big. And I'm glad we talked to you, because I wouldn't even have thought to ask at the closing table or during the due diligence, hey, do you have a contract with any of your utility companies? Like, to bring, because you'd hope that they would have it all organized, but if you are the buyer of this apartment complex, you hope that all of the information gets brought to you and that you can check it all off. But things get lost if they're not organized.
Yep.
So who knows?
I can't tell you how often I'm told, oh, there's no contract, and yet there is, because the cable company still has it, or maybe it was so old, maybe it was 2 owners of this property ago and it didn't get moved over, right? So we will work for a client who's in due diligence, looking at a property, and try and find out from our resources, is there a contract on this property? And we'll let them know, we'll inform them of what we find out. And I can't tell you how many times we've done that, and the clients say, yeah, the deal didn't go through, or we passed on it. Once we ran the numbers, it didn't make sense. And that's okay. That's okay. We get, our strategy is, we get paid on some, we service all. That's the relationship we have with our clients. You need our help in this area. Even if we didn't do the contract, we will help service that, but knowing full well that we only get paid on some. But that's okay. That's the added value that we offer our clients because they're our clients and we want long-term relationships with them.
Yeah. And these service providers are always going to service the building. So there's enough business out there. If you have the goodwill of helping people and not getting paid, there's going to be the avenue on the other side of that.
Sometimes you have to invest first and you get paid. When you do the right, I believe when you do good, you get good. So
Yep, it's true. And that is like the core of investing. You're not going to see the tree right away. You're growing seeds, and then you keep watering the seeds and they're going to grow into the trees that you have.
Right.
So you're on the right path. I'm kind of shocked that I didn't even think about this avenue. This is honestly something that I've never thought about. So I feel like I need to go to more conferences now. I'm not getting exposed to enough. It's super fascinating because I've never once thought that there was a service out there that could compete or be on my behalf with these utility companies that when you look at them, they're too big, they're too powerful to even push on. They set the rule and that is what it is.
Yep. Yeah. So
it's cool.
We've got a lot of people that are in that same boat that just, it's not something you think about,
Yeah. And I just want to bring the one question that I have, because a lot of people are talking about leaving Time Warner, leaving Spectrum, and just going to like the streaming services.
Mm-hmm.
Have you felt any of that shift, or is it not as big of a grouping as I think it is, that are trying to switch to just going like Netflix and Hulu?
Yeah, well, but you still need internet.
That is true.
So we really now represent and worry about who's the internet provider than, video, because, that's
you still need the internet to play Hulu.
You can't watch it without internet of some sort.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
This is like a lockdown utility necessity for multifamily.
It's just
we personally use I think it's YouTube TV on our house. So I understand like internet's a necessity for that. We can't do without it.
Right. Yeah, I have a couple of streaming apps myself. I use Hulu. I don't use my local cable provider's video service, but I use their internet service. So, I spend $100 a month on internet service to get a really good internet service. And then I use Hulu, and being in Northeast Ohio, to watch my sports, my Cavs and my Blue Jackets and Guardians. I have to watch.
And I see the Buckeyes behind you. I wasn't going to mention it, but no, they're an amazing program. It's just a Big Ten rivalry.
Oh, please don't.
Wisconsin, but man, they're rough.
Hey,
that's rough.
To me, I root Big Ten except one school.
Michigan State.
No, the other one.
Michigan.
The team up north, as we refer to them. So get this. I told you I've got a son. He lives outside of Rockford, right? He's 18, senior in high school. He has selected his college, and he is going to Michigan State.
Oh, at least it's not Michigan.
Which is okay. It's okay with me, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right?
Yes.
And we both
is true.
We both hate that other school. Now, I do have a deal with him that basically says there will be one day a year that I will not be rooting for his team. And he's okay with that. He understands, because I will still root for the Buckeyes, regardless of where my checks are going for my son's education to Michigan State. I will absolutely still root for the Buckeyes to beat Michigan State in football. I don't really care about basketball as much, but yeah. So
I think they got him in both. I think they got him in both still. Although basketball yet to be seen this year, but
good. Sparty's pretty good.
They are.
They are really good at making chocolate Buckeyes. So if you ever need them, I'll ship them up to you.
Chocolate Buckeyes, those are awesome.
Yeah.
I don't even know what those are.
The peanut butter in the middle. Oh yeah, Natasha, you got to make some for Marcus, man. Those are awesome.
My first husband was a Buckeyes alumni. He actually was in the marching band there. So I'm very familiar with the Buckeyes.
Script, Ohio. There you go.
OH.
IO.
No.
She knows. She knows.
Oh, this is spinning out of control.
It is really. I mean, we're now for the sports portion of our podcast.
Yeah, welcome to MVP Sports Podcast. No, it is always enjoy watching Buckeyes, but I got to give them a hard time. I know that people don't really like Urban Meyer, but in terms of football skill, he brought the Buckeyes back.
He brought us a national title. We love him.
Yeah, I mean,
Nobody's perfect.
yeah, great football coach, but yeah, it's hard to root for the Buckeyes because they seem to always dominate the Big Ten.
We completely.
It's like the Patriots or the whole New England area. Irritating. Right. They're passionate fans. They love their stuff to a point that annoys everybody else.
Well, growing up, the baseball wise, Yankees, I can't stand the Yankees for the same reason, because they were always good. Yeah. And I was always jealous, you know?
Yep.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
And that's where the Buckeyes are for me. But all in all, it's all in good fun. But I know you had a hard cutoff, so I don't want to keep you too long. What I do want to do is ask for those people that are thinking about getting into multifamily or are in multifamily, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you, seeing as you're at conferences all the time? If they're not at the same conference, how would they get a hold of you?
I actually don't. I try not to go to conferences all the time, so because I got to get the work done too. So, although I've got a good team, there's 4 of us here that take care of things, so it's not just me. But
that's good.
Kevin at Multifamily Utility Solutions.com is probably the best way. Shoot me if you have a question. I can answer it via email. If you want to schedule a call, we can schedule a call. No obligation. Our intro calls normally take like 10-15 minutes. I'm not a big fan of wasting anybody's time or anything like that, but I'm happy to share what we know as an investment in, their company, and hopefully they'll need us someday.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely going to keep your number once I can hit your threshold for doors to give you a call, because I'm very excited to see what can be done here. This is a cool industry that I'm definitely going to get off the call and read a little bit tonight.
All right,
what's going on with this one? Thanks for opening my eyes on this one. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. Hopefully you enjoy the weekend and it's not below freezing yet. I know it's coming.
It's coming. Unfortunately, it goes with the territory.
I know, unfortunately.
Yep.
But thanks again for being on. I appreciate the knowledge. And we'll be in touch soon. Hopefully we have some listeners that get in touch too, because I definitely see the benefit in this one.
Awesome. Marcus, Natasha, appreciate your time. And look forward to talking to you soon when you get some more doors.
A few more to go and we'll get there.
All right. Sounds great.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks. You guys
Kevin.
have a great day.
Bye.